here's another move through that I think is very important, which you might find surprising, but nevertheless. The group in France that is defining itself against the existentialists, but is importantly influenced by them, are the situationists. The situationists are coming out of a mainly art movement, but then redefining themselves. The key theorists and thinkers are Guy Debord and Raoul Vaneigem, and a lot of the early thinking that we see in the situationist work is happening in the context of freedom, in the context of their revolt against what's happening to the Paris that they knew and the Paris that they're suddenly seeing. That's the Paris of the consumer revolution, and they're strongly critical of it. Consumerism hits France last in Europe. And the American, remember when the American Coca-Cola lorries first arrive in France, the French overturn them and say we're a wine-drinking nation. So there's a lot of resistance at a cultural level against that, and always has been, which I think is excellent. Take note of the French UK. So their critiques are coming from that existential inauthenticity. Is kind of one of the things that's going there. Vaneigem is a Belgian, a poet and a theorist. His book, translated as Revolution of Everyday Life, there's a lot of themes in there that can easily be traced back to some of the things that the existentialists are doing. Their notion of the constructing situations that disrupt everyday life, the situationist, making vivid what is now ossified in consumer capitalism, that can easily be connected back. So then if you look at the people who are most influencing the contemporary Occupy movement and a lot of others, it's not Trotsky anymore. That's gone for the young. The party form has also gone for the young. So the key things that are probably still there, as somebody said about the Occupy demonstrations, everybody's got a copy of Society of the Spectacle. It's the Guy Debord work. Guy Debord was himself very critical of Sartre, very critical. But it's characteristically French. They have to, no bigger squabbles than Sartre versus Camus, best friends, then worst enemies. Guy Debord and Vaneigem, best friends, worst enemies. They're just all over the place, those kind of horrific split-ups. And also with the previous generation. So having soaked up, and I think he did, the existential milieu. Guy Debord got into the Sorbonne and never went once. The existential milieu of the left bank, he then revolted against the existentialists. They drank in the swanky cafes of Saint-Germain-des-Prés. The situationists in the lowest cafes with the French workers. But that influence is important. The existential questions, which I think are above simply the movement or the philosophy itself. The existential questions, I think, are still there, and particularly there for young people. Like, what is this life we live? And they don't want a structuralist or post-structuralist analysis of it. They want an answer in relation to their lives now, lives that often make no sense at all. No sense at all. Those are certainly places and traditions that are I think, very alive. And, I follow the various sources and sites of these things. And, yeah, Sartre is back. And the kind of that Sartre strain of existentialism is back and is a very important one, I think.